Dr. Scott!
Janet!
Brad!
Rook!
Bullwinkle!
Janet!
Dr. Scott!
Janet!
Brad!
Rook!
Bullwinkle!
Janet!
Dr. Scott!
Janet!
Brad!
Rook!
Bullwinkle!
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
So some real talk here first, just to alienate the people who are watching this video first before any of the other videos. But usually what I do, for anybody who has seen this knows, I usually take movies that I watched as a kid that are a bit peculiar and review them right here. Review them slash, make fun of them, a la, Nostalgia Critic and the thousands of other people out there on the internet who do this kind of stuff. By the way, no frickin' joke, a couple months ago, the Iditarod happened in Alaska, right, which is the dog sled racing, which my mom follows, and so we were talking on the phone about it, and it suddenly popped in my head, Balto. The cartoon Balto. I watched that as a kid and I remembered hating it. It would be perfect for the series. And then, of course, anybody who follows the critic knows he just did a review of it, which leaves me in this weird position of, do I watch it and try to avoid making the same jokes, or do I just ignore it, not watch it at all, and hope that I come up with my own material? It's weird. But the point to all this is, usually I take movies from my childhood, movies I watched as a kid, and this one I watched as a teenager, so I know I broke the mold. It doesn't make sense. None of this fits. But mainly I wanted to point out that this was actually a request from a fan of the show. So thank you, and here's a Rocky Horror Picture Show. I don't know how to go about reviewing this movie. Usually I riff on these bizarre films and poke fun at their shortcomings, but when it comes to Rocky Horror, poking fun at it has become America's greatest pastime. What can I say about it that hasn't already been said by millions of drunken, stoned weirdos in drag?
Ooh, I should have gotten that spare tire fixed.
So maybe it's about time this mindfuck of a movie be looked at an intellectual level.
It's just a jump to the left.
Oh, what a task. Rocky Horror came out in 1975 and was produced by 20th Century Fox. The movie was based on an original screenplay written by Richard O'Brien.
Hello.
Yeah, this guy. The movie is, at the bare minimum of explanation, a loving nod to classic horror movies. You've got vampires, Frankenstein's monster, the Mummy, King Kong, whatever the hell this is supposed to be. All of this combined with the more modern horrors of transvestites and Barry Bostwick's O-Face, and you have yourself a movie people gather around yearly to watch, reenact, and shout at. So instead of my usual routine of riffing on a movie and saying if I think it's good or bad, or even if I like it, I'm going to dig deeper into this film's meaning. Find out what it's trying to say, if anything, and where it falls in the grand scheme of movie history. So what's the plot of this musical comedy? Well, I'm glad you asked. I haven't the foggiest fucking idea. Okay, I'll try to explain it the best I can. The Rocky Horror Picture Show is about an asshole named Brad and a slut named Janet who decide to get engaged at a church. An odd choice for an opening scene in a movie about sex slaves and cannibalism, but perhaps it's there as a familiar and innocent contrast to the dark machinations of our future antagonist. Or, maybe not. Hey, who here has the sif?
Oh, Brad, wasn't it wonderful?
No.
Betty looked radiantly beautiful.
No.
Oh, I can't believe it. An hour ago, she was plain old Betty Monroe, and now...
Now she's just plain old. Oh yeah, and this church's cemetery has a billboard just sitting in it. Perhaps as a metaphor of commercialism and its firm grasp on our mortality, standing in the way of achieving happiness up to the day we die. Or it could just be there for no goddamn reason, other than to tell us the home of happiness is in Janet's hat. The two end up getting a flat tire in the middle of nowhere. Oh man, the only rubber you see in this movie and it has a hole in it.
I'm coming with you.
That'll be a first.
Besides, darling, the owner of that phone might be a beautiful woman, and you might never come back again.
You should be so lucky. They decide to seek shelter and a phone in a spooky mansion, as one does in a typical horror movie, and here we meet the famous cast of oddities, the queen of them being Frankenfurter, played by Tim Curry, the role that was made for no other man than he.
I will entertain.
The cameraman with the world's largest handjob, the glue that holds this whole deranged movie together. His character could be giddy as a schoolgirl, suave and sexual, a complete she-bitch, sentimental and melodramatic. It's a pretty deep character for a movie that goes out of its way to look shoddy and unhinged. And it's his character more so than Brad and Janet's that really drives the movie forward. Of course, once Brad and Janet step beyond the threshold, we get introduced to the other crazy-ass characters, like Riff Raff and Magenta, the two caretakers slash lovers slash aliens slash vampires slash brother and sister slash... You get the idea.
You're lucky. He's lucky. I'm lucky.
The Bannister's lucky. Columbia, who's just kind of there.
I loved you. Do you hear me? I loved you.
You were the chosen one!
A man in a wheelchair who just randomly shows up named Scott.
Hey, Scotty!
Beam me up, this movie sucks. And of course you have Rocky, Frankenfurter's Frankenstein monster, designed solely to be a sex toy. A newborn, intelligently underdeveloped sex toy. Whatever, he gets a song, so it's fine. A song called The Sword of Damocles.
The sword of Damocles is hanging over my head.
What gets me, though, is The Sword of Damocles is based on an ancient Greek tale that teaches of the ever-present danger faced by those who hold great power, like a king. So why is a newborn muscle man singing about his potential death? Maybe it's a musical representation of a baby crying when it's born. Crying out of fear of its own mortality. In fact, this movie has a lot of Greek references in it now that I think about it, like the stained glass of Atlas, the sweaty man love, the Medusa machine.
My feet! I can't move my feet!
My legs! My God, I can't move my legs!
He carries the Charles Atlas seal of approval.
Or. Well, to make a long and stupid plot short, everyone has sex with each other, they have meatloaf for dinner, and... Oh yeah, did I mention aliens were involved? All while a no-neck Bond villain comes in once in a while to narrate what we're about to see, or what we've already seen, like it's some scary campfire story.
What diabolical plan had seized Frank's crazed imagination?
What diabolical chicken stepped on your forehead? Again, this movie is clearly a love letter to the old Universal monster flicks of yore, and even makes a reference to Triffids.
And I really got hot when I saw Jeanette Scott fight a Triffid that spits poison and kills.
And you know you're in for a treat when the first song of your musical mentions Triffids. There's of course the obvious references like neck bites a la Dracula, climbing a tower like King Kong, the aforementioned alien plot. Hell, the birth of Rocky combines the mummy and Frankenstein's monster in one not-so-subtle costume choice. Rocky is even terrified of fire like the monster. But there's another monster hidden in the shadows of this campfest of a movie. A monster less portrayed on the big screen than the others. A monster that consumes us all at one point or another. A monster that lingers within our very soul. It's sexuality.
The intruder is entering the building, Master.
And the building doesn't like it one bit. When you think about it, this movie has a deep fascination with people's sexuality. Balls deep, you could say. But I won't, because that joke is dumb. Treating it like a strange, terrifying beast that can consume and transform a person at any given moment. Frankfurter's confusing but charming role as a transvestite with a strong sexual appetite. Hey, I rhymed! Cleverly foreshadowing the effect sexual desire will have on the other characters of the story. Desire and its effect on characters in this movie is fascinating to say the least. The most blatant of examples comes from the creation of Rocky, a toy made by Frankie for Frankie as a means to satiate his sexual desire. But, like Frankenstein's monster, the beast turns on its creator and unleashes itself on others. In this case, fucking them, not so much drowning them in a lake. The two eventually meet their doom at the hands of those who don't approve of Frankie's creation. Frankie tried to play God, but instead of being undone by his own hubris, like Dr. Frankenstein, is instead undone by his sexual desires. And besides, Frankie's hubris is pretty undoable. Or wait, undone. It's pretty big. There's also, of course, the transformation of Janet in the movie. She starts as an innocent woman in the beginning who we learn was saving herself from marriage, and is, for lack of a better word, deflowered by Frankie later on. At first, Janet's traumatized by the experience, and finding out that Brad also had a fling with Frankie doesn't help matters much either. Enter Rocky, a being created for the sole purpose of sex, in a vulnerable position, cold, wet, scared, and in need of some comfort. Yeah, guess what happens next?
He fixes the cable.
There are many terms for a woman of Janet's caliber. A whore, a slut, a cocksheath. But honestly, I think that's a bit unfair. Even though the editing makes it seem like she got a once-over by every character in the movie. Oh, okay, yeah, it's alright. Yeah, cool, okay, yeah. No, I think this again all goes back to sexuality as a monster. Put simply, she wants more and doesn't care who from. Frankie's advances on her clearly unlocking something dark and unfulfilled. I'd say it actually speaks more to the male audience as a horror movie concept. I mean, think about it. As a guy, you're likely, at least in a subconscious level, to put yourself in Brad's shoes. He's an everyman. He's kind of dorky. He's the most like us out of anyone else in the movie. Hopefully. So here he is trying to make a life with a woman he's in love with, and we, again, kind of rooting for Brad, get to watch his lady transform into a sex-hungry beast. And he's not even getting any of the action. But then again, I guess it is his fault for smoking a fag. The cigarette. I meant the cigarette. Smoking's bad, guys. Hey, Frank went down on the Titanic. Frank, he'll go down on anything. No wonder no seaman survived. Is it too far-fetched to think that a campy movie starring an androgynous alien is really just a clever metaphor for our intimate desires being unleashed in a monstrous fashion? Perhaps. But it's either that or I make myself look like an asshole by pointing out the clear as goddamn day plot holes. Like these weirdos we see at the beginning of the film. Who are they? Why are they there? Are they aliens too? Did they seriously come to this mansion in the middle of nowhere to watch her royal craziness create a human being?
Throw open the switches on the sonic oscillator!
Oscillator? I just met her. These people completely disappear after Rocky's been created. Which, by the way, ends with Frankie killing Meatloaf's character Eddie with a fucking pickaxe. No one's gonna call the cops, huh?
It was a mercy killing.
And Brad and Janet are just sent to their separate rooms afterwards. Or, well, same room, different light filter. Yeah, about that phone you guys were looking for. Also, there's the part when Frankie goes off the deep end and turns everyone into statues. Suddenly there's a floor show, where they all dress in corsets and have a big musical number. Why is this happening? Yes, I know it's a musical, but in the point of view of Frankenfurter, what made him decide this should happen? Fortunately, Riff Raff is just as done with this shit as I am. Damn it, this movie just made me get all pedantic after I promised I wouldn't. This movie was made with obvious cheesiness in mind, so really I should refrain from treating it like it's just another bad movie. Whenever I think of cult classics, Rocky Horror is always the first thing that comes to mind, and I think should be for everyone else who's seen it. It's hard to really nail down the specifics when it comes to films we generally call a cult film. Cult films are often categorized by many different criteria. It has to be independently made, the mainstream audience has to not have liked it, and my personal favorite, it has to be enjoyed ironically. Yeah, good job on that one, guys. You know, it's thanks to you assholes that drew over Plan 9 in the room that we get fucking tryhards like Sharknado to ruin the integrity of cinema for the next dozen generations. I mean, I get the idea of a film that's so bad it's good. I really do, but a lot of cult films that are put into the category of cult because they're bad usually have some semblance of charm. I wouldn't go into Army of Darkness and say it's so bad it's good, and that I like it ironically. I like it because it has atmosphere, it has character, it has the goddamn chin. And that's how I feel about Rocky Horror as a cult film as well. Yeah, the filmmakers knew going into it that they weren't going to make movie history, and that a lot of its quirks were intentional, but I wouldn't dare compare it to these other tongue-in-cheek bad movies because those movies just don't have any soul. There's no fun. It's just garbage being peddled like any other Hollywood flop, but with a different marketing direction intended to somehow make it a better movie. Don't worry guys, it's a bad movie, but we totally meant to do that. With Rocky Horror, there's talent involved. Its flaws more subtle and hilarious. More indicative of a movie you'd go see to make jokes at.
How did it happen?
I don't know, but I have a hunch. Something people apparently like to do for The Room as well, which is weird because that movie isn't so bad it's good, it's just bad.
You are tearing me apart, Lisa!
Wow, sorry about that. Apparently I had a lot to get off my chest. Now, where was I?
Your hands on your hips.
Oh, yeah. As a cult film, I think Rocky Horror fits another niche that are often seen in cult films, and that's its appeal to a culture. Rocky Horror is all about outcasts, misfits who prefer to live their lives differently than others. It's no wonder that at the midnight showings, our androgynous Frankenfurter is viewed as the hero of the story, a celebrated character. Despite his flaws, his lifestyle choices, he's different, he's weird, and we should love him for it. This speaks to those who like going against the norm and get discredited for being strange. And that's where the fan base of this film comes from. And ultimately, that's the best way to define a cult film, by its fans. If there's people out there who love a movie, dress up as their favorite characters, force all their friends into watching, and defend its merits to the death, then that's a cult film, which can easily be said about the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And at the end of the day, that's all I can really say about this movie. It's beyond reviewing. It transcends criticism. So that's my senseless ramblings about the cult classic, The Rocky Horror Picture Show. A bit different from what I usually do here, but it's only fitting because this film is a bit different. I joke on the series a lot about bad movies, and for the most part that comes out of love. Of course, every once in a while I get kind of carried away, and sometimes a bit too serious. Like Christ, you guys apparently really didn't like my opinion on Mouse Hunt. But overall, I want to celebrate the weird, the underappreciated, the bizarre, and the mostly forgotten. And Rocky Horror definitely fits that mantra, other than the mostly forgotten part, I guess. So the next time you're watching a strange and terrible film and find yourself feeling angry or confused, just remember this. We're merely crawling on this planet's face. Some insects called the human race. Lost in time, lost in space, and meaning.
Science fiction, double feature. Frank has built and lost his creature.